Hello, everybody. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Hangry Mexican. I'm actually here with Claire, the wifey here. This is going to be a different type of podcast because it is summer, and with all the traveling that Americans are expected to make this summer, we thought that we'd share our own traveling experience. And you may or may not know some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about, and by no means are we experts in traveling, but I feel that we have some experience that we'd like to share that maybe could help somebody that's, could be in our same shoes. So anyway, Claire, say hi to everybody. Here we go.
Hello, Hangry Mexican Podcast viewers. So happy you could be with us.
All right, so where do you want to start?
Well, I think the most fun trip that we've had is our honeymoon to Mexico.
Yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking for me, I gotta say.
Why was it nerve-wracking?
Well, because I know how Mexico can be. I mean, it's not the safest place in the world, and if you don't know how to move in that world, in that culture, then it can be a little nerve-wracking. And I had not been to Mexico in, I think, 10 years at least. But it's crazy because I actually used to travel to Mexico all the time when I was a kid and school would be out. So every summer, my parents and I would go out to Guadalajara and spend about 3 months out there. And so I got a chance to be part of that world down there and kind of get to know the culture and get to know everything that went around there. But like I said, it had been about at least 10 years since I had last been to Mexico. And, in those 10 plus years, things change. So you see all these travel advisories and all this stuff. So of course, it tends to get in your mind, and you want to be as careful as you can.
And what things can people do to get those travel advisory alerts, and how can they be informed with current events within the destination they're going to travel to?
That's a good question. Well, for us in our case, so we, a simple Google search can help. So usually there are really informative pages out there that can give you a list of things that you should do and whatnot. But a list is a list, and it's a completely different experience once you get there. So you can prepare as much as you want, but I don't know. There's curveballs that get thrown at you, like Montezuma's Revenge, for example.
Yeah. Really? You want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah.
That was not the funnest part of the honeymoon.
Yeah. But before we get to that, just to finish answering your question. So if you go to just the website for the U.S. Department of State, you can find a lot of good information there, including how to register with the consulate, the U.S. Embassy of wherever you're going. So basically, you just select your country, and then you can get information on travel advisories, travel warnings, and numbers of the embassy in that country that you're traveling to. So I think the website for that is state.gov. Yep. State.gov. If you go there, you can find all that information.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that if there are travel concerns in the area that you're going, that you don't go out at night, maybe in the community of which you're going to. You visit the community during the day, and then you're back to your hotel at night. So it's not, I don't think you should live in fear and not travel and not visit places that are really cool to see in the world, but just take precautions and stick to the resort area that you're going that's well-populated tourist area.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, the latest country that's in the headlines all over the world is the Dominican Republic, because all these Americans, I think there's 11, as of the recording of this podcast, it's up to 11 people now, 11 Americans that have lost their lives in the Dominican Republic, and I guess all of them were staying in the area of Bahia Principe, in that resort area. So I think after this podcast there, we might know more information as to what's going on down there. But yeah, that's nerve-wracking, especially if you have plans this summer to go there and you see these headlines. It makes you think twice. And so in our case, when we saw all these travel advisory and travel warnings in Mexico, it made us think twice. I think even up to, I think it might have been a week before our trip over there, we had a travel advisor or travel warning on Cancun, because we actually went to Playa del Carmen, but
which is south of Cancun.
Yeah,
30 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm, yeah, but of course, we when we landed in Cancun, and on the ride on the drive there, you just don't know. I mean, sometimes things could happen on the drive to your resort. Luckily for us, nothing crazy happened. We just landed in Cancun airport, and then took our drive over to our resort, and that was good.
And that was all during the day.
Yeah.
So you have control over when you pick your flight, arrival times and departure times, knowing that you're going to be traveling on the public road. So you just choose daylight hours if that works out with your schedule, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. But nothing could prepare us actually for what happened on the trip. I think we probably could have planned a little better, because one of the things that I think you should always take with you is some kind of medicine or first aid kit. Because in my case, for example, one day I was in the pool, and this actually happened early on in the trip too. I think we were there for a week, was it? Mm-hmm. So a week in Playa del Carmen, and the resort was beautiful. It had a pool and a spa, jacuzzi. I mean, it was nice. But I kind of slipped a little bit in the pool, and then I tried to regain my footing, and then I sliced the bottom of my foot open. And that kind of took me out of commission for a few days. But, we wanted to, thankfully I didn't need stitches, but what I did need was a little bit of the Neosporin. And even though the hotel had a medical, what would you call it? Like a medical room?
A little clinic area.
Yeah, it wasn't really regularly staffed, we found out. Because do you remember the reason why?
I don't.
Yeah, I think it might have been something along the lines of if it's super serious, usually in those cases they take you to the nearest hospital, which I don't know where that would be. Maybe Cancun. But we tried getting the little Neosporin, and so for I think a couple of days we couldn't get a hold of anybody there, and the people at the hotel they just they came in and checked out the cut, and it's almost like they wanted to get off the hook in a way. So it kind of felt that way when they were talking to me and asking me questions. I kind of felt almost like they were accusing me of doing that it was user error as opposed to their pool. And I mean, I get that. The hotel just didn't want any liability of that. They didn't want to get sued or whatever. But really, what I really wanted was just more than a little Band-Aid and a kiss on the cut. And we ended up finally finding a medical person at the hotel, and we asked for Neosporin, and they actually wanted to sell it to us for, I think it was $20, right? They told you $20 US for a little bottle or a little tube of Neosporin. So that was just ridiculous. And of course, we didn't have anything. But at that point, by the time we got a hold of this medical professional, if you will, my foot was actually feeling a little better. So we ended up actually taking a trip down to the little town of Playa del Carmen. So we were actually staying in the outskirts of Playa del Carmen. But anyway, we ended up going into town, and there was a ton of pharmacies out there, especially in the tourist areas. So we ended up just getting or buying a Neosporin tube there, and that was about half the price, actually. So if anything, if you're near a town maybe just a taxi cab right away, you can do that, and you can just get medicine for half the price as you would find it there at the hotel. But even better yet is just to pack your own medicine when you go, and also just make sure that you have you're up to date on your vaccines and all that stuff, because that's kind of just what I learned. You might have a hard time finding medical care. Even if it's a nice resort and everything, you might just have a hard time finding medical care, as it happened with me. And you might have to just stay bedridden for a couple days or so.
And while we were touring around the town of Playa del Carmen, we stopped at a restaurant for food. We had a margarita, and then we had a little agua fresca from a little like restaurant type vendor. And we just thought nothing of it. Like, we just were enjoying the community in the city. And then we went back to the hotel, and then my tummy started feeling funny, and then got a little bit of tummy issues, Moctezuma's revenge, and we'll just leave it at that. But it's like we were off the resort property, and we just totally forgot to ask for purified water with our margarita and fruit juice blender thing. So it was just, it just kind of made for a bummer of a trip to then be kind of stuck to the hotel room near a bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we had plans to go and look at the ruins of the pyramids there nearby, but those plans got canceled because of these unfortunate events. But we still tried to make the best that we could, because we did get an all-inclusive resort. However, there's a catch to that. There's only a certain aspect of the resort that is all inclusive. You might find that you have to pay extra for other things that they're offering, and they're not really good at telling you, yeah, you got to pay extra here and there and blah blah blah. You kind of have to just use your common logic and ask questions. That's the thing, And Claire and I, we both work in news. And so a lot of our times, our job depends on asking questions.
And it helped that you could speak Spanish too. And I understood it enough, communicate enough, but so you could really ask good questions and get communication with the staff in Spanish.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when for some reason, whenever I go to Mexico, there's a switch that gets flipped inside me. And then all of a sudden I start speaking pretty good Spanish. I don't think it's perfect by any means or anything, but somehow my Spanish fooled the one of the airport officials that was working there, because they thought that I was from Guadalajara, which of course, my dad is, and I grew up speaking Spanish, and I grew up listening to the way he speaks, and I didn't think anything of it. But just like here in the United States, there's a lot of different dialects, different accents, depending on which state you're in. So anyway, this airport official thought I was from Guadalajara, so he was a little bit more helpful in answering my questions, and of course. And that also came in handy when we were in Playa del Carmen and we were trying to buy things and haggle, because I was able to effectively communicate with the town folks there, and they assumed that I was a native there, a resident or something, and they would kind of back off on any type of little schemes that they might have been concocting. For the most part, everybody was just friendly, and we liked that experience. But yeah, that language was not a barrier for me, and I was able to effectively communicate with them, and they with me, and so there was like a more of a almost like a friendship type style of them talking to me. It's just the way they treated me was, I think, a little different than if I had not spoken Spanish at all. But yeah, like Claire was saying, we kind of went off the beaten path for a little bit, because I kind of wanted to explore a little bit more. It's one thing to stay in the touristy areas, another thing is to go out and explore the real deal. But for us, we didn't want to strive too far away, especially again because of these travel advisories and travel warnings that we had read beforehand, and you just never know. So that's when we left the area, the tourist area, and mind you that it wasn't that far too. I think we might have walked maybe a block and a half away from the main tourist drag, but that's when the Montezuma's Revenge started happening.
Well, that's just when we found that vendor that sold the fruit juices, and we just got one, and we just didn't even think of asking for purified water, or asking if they use purified water.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
We just got so used to being on the resort property where everything is automatically purified water. So gotta remember.
Yeah, exactly. But we ended up just going back to the hotel and making the best of things. And at the hotel, we would enjoy all the things that were all inclusive, which were the breakfasts, lunch and dinner. Of course, there's room service. Room service is all included. So that was just really nice. That was a good time that we had just on that stuff. But there were other things, like for example, there was when we first got there to the hotel, there was a hotel staffer that kind of checked us in and everything, and then explain how explain certain things of how everything works there. He didn't, he left a few things out, but we found out later what the real deal was. So one of the things they told us was that we could have a really good breakfast, like a excellent breakfast. Somehow he made it seem like it was a better breakfast than what they served there. And he gave us these vouchers or something like that. I think it was like a packet of vouchers for different activities at the hotel and everything. So for this breakfast, they said, it's in a nearby hotel. We do some type of business with them, and we can get you a cab, and that cab would take you over to the hotel next to us and bring you back, and you can have your breakfast and all that stuff. And everything was fine and dandy. And the hotel, the cab wasn't. The cab actually was free for this. That's another thing. So they told us, the cab ride is free. It's included because this is our hotel that we're doing a partnership thing with. So we ended up trying that the next day. We got the cab. We drove over to the nearest, the hotel next door that they talked about, and we were escorted in to this little area that had all these little tables set up, and they sat us down. And so I tried sitting down across from Claire. Like usually we do this, and when we go eat at a restaurant and whatnot, we sit across each other so that we actually look at each other as opposed to just be on the same side. So when I tried doing that, the guy that I thought was our server said like, no, you got to sit on that side too. And that was a little weird. And then we look over, and there were maybe two other couples in the room that were sitting on the same side, and there was somebody that was well dressed talking to them across the table from them. And so immediately I realized, oh no, this is a timeshare presentation.
There was no silverware on the table. They didn't hand us menus, so it was definitely not the breakfast spot.
Yep, exactly. So sure enough, this well-dressed person comes over, sits across from us, and I tell them, hey, he sets down this huge binder, and I said, well, I hope that's the breakfast menu, kind of joking around, kind of laughed a little bit. And he confirmed that it was a timeshare presentation. So I said, whoa, let me just stop you here. We came here for breakfast. We are not interested in listening to anything else. And we'd like to be shown to our seats where we can get our breakfast. And they said, well, you have to sit through this presentation and before you can get to your breakfast. And that kind of frustrated me a little bit. So I said, no, we're not doing that. So you better call us our cab back, and we're going to leave. So we ended up just leaving. So they called the taxi cab, and we left. Now, that was the end of that. Or so we thought. That's not the end of the story, of course. But we still had this booklet of vouchers of activities to do at our hotel. I think one of them was a spa. Another one was like a romantic dinner for two over at the beach in the sand, and we tried setting those activities up, but we were told that we had to pay to do those activities, like the spa, for example, or any other activities like the water skiing. And the romantic dinner for two, well, there was a catch. That was, I think, either free or there was a small cost associated with it, even with the voucher. But we had to have sat through that timeshare presentation. Somehow sitting through that timeshare presentation unlocked the booklet of vouchers that we had. So all these coupons, all these vouchers, they were no good because we had never sat through the presentation on our second day there. So at that point, we're like, oh, okay, well, I guess we can't do any of these activities then. So I think that's one of the things you have to be aware of too. Like when you travel to these all-inclusive resorts, you have to be aware that not everything is all-inclusive. So if you want to save money, you just got to stay to the all-inclusive part. But it's just something that we didn't know because we weren't explained this part of our trip. And the people at the hotel, even though they were friendly, they just didn't tell us this. I almost felt like they kept this information from us. Otherwise, we wouldn't have probably accepted the voucher booklet or wasted our time going to the nearby hotel had they told us that this was going to be a timeshare presentation. And on the ride back, actually, we talked to our cab driver, and the cab driver, he wasn't shocked on it at all, but he was apologetic. And I'm kind of like, well, why are you apologizing for? He's just like, well, yeah, I've seen a lot of people that leave these timeshare presentations really upset because they weren't told beforehand that they were going to be coming and walking into this type of thing. So here's the other thing too with the language. I felt that me speaking Spanish here in this occasion also worked very well to our advantage because I knew that I wasn't going to get fooled into anything after discovering that this was a timeshare presentation. So we just left and we made the best of it, given everything. And there's these little gift shops too at the hotel, and you got to be careful of them because the shopkeeper for one of these little gift shops, he had really cool stuff and everything, but he would slash the prices a lot, and he would say, yeah, I'll give you this for this, and I'll give you that. And so, you accumulate all these items that you want to take, all these little gifts you want to bring back home, and at a slashed or reduced price. I mean, what could get better, right? And you think everything's okay, and you're going to go pay with your credit card or debit card or whatever it is, and all of a sudden they tell you, oh well, it's better if you pay with cash because then I get the benefit, and it helps me out, and with the credit card, debit card, the bank stays with most of the money, and I don't get as much, and blah blah blah. And so they try and convince you to go to an ATM machine or an ATM. And withdraw money. So at that point, it's costing you a lot of money to withdraw money because of international fees and all that stuff. And so in the end, you end up spending much more than what he originally quoted, he or she. So you got to be careful on those things. You got to set from the get-go the tone that you're going to be paying with your credit card, and you're going to be going to no ATM nearby or whatever to get cash out. So be careful of that. That was something that I had to learn the hard way.
Mm-hmm. So would you recommend carrying a wad of cash with you when you travel?
I mean, yes and no. Depending on the country that you're going to, I don't feel comfortable carrying a lot of cash on me. But we ended up, I think, withdrawing about $500 worth of pesos before we left. And we did it through AAA, but if depending on what bank you have, they might be able to do the conversion rate and all that stuff and get you cash. I definitely would recommend taking cash with you in the value of whatever country you're going to. In this case, it was pesos, so we just converted that here at the AAA office, and so I had pesos with me. And when we got to the hotel, we just kind of stored or hid some of those away. And when we went out and about, we only had a certain amount of cash. I think it was maybe $60 worth. So if anything were to happen, that we might get, our wallet stolen or lost or whatever, then we wouldn't have lost that cash. We would have lost a little bit of it, but we would have had some more as a backup to do other things, to mobilize, to move around and take care of business, if you will. But for the most part, I did take my credit cards. I think I might have left one at home. I can't remember. Maybe I left it back in the hotel room. But I always made sure that I carried a small amount of cash in my wallet and had at least one credit or debit card with me, and that way, if I ran into any problems, I could pull out either cash or credit card. So that was good. I did have to warn the banks though before I left. Hey, I'm gonna make this trip. I'm gonna be over there. These are the dates. We'll be over there, and that way they, my card would work over there. I think I've had that happen once where I tried purchasing something, and this was actually in the East Coast here in the States, and tried purchasing something, and my bank flagged it, and a purchase couldn't go through, so I had to call them up, and yeah, it was a big mess. So I learned that before I travel abroad. So that's a good thing, a good tip to do.
Excellent. So, but overall, it was a great trip in Mexico, and we loved it. And knowing all the stuff we learned, I think we should go back.
Yeah. There's all these other trips that I want to take, and now that I feel a lot more comfortable traveling, the better. And that was actually like I said earlier, the first time in about 10 years that I had gone to Mexico. I think for a few years now, I've been going with Claire over to the East Coast to visit family. And that's also an experience in itself, because there's all these ways of traveling to getting on the East Coast. And no matter what experience we take, there's always new knowledge to gain from that, because something unexpected could happen. Like, for example, I remember that time that we went over to the East Coast, and New Hampshire it was, and I think we took, it was like multiple stops, because we flew from the Santa Barbara airport to the Manchester airport, and these are by no means international airports, so you have to take at least one or two other stops along the way to get to the Manchester airport from Santa Barbara, or vice versa. So on the way back, we ended up getting stranded in Manchester, which, it wasn't too bad. But so here's the thing, the flight had no problems in the Manchester area, but our next stop after that was actually in Chicago at O'Hare, and there was a storm that passed at O'Hare that grounded a lot of flights. So our flight just kept getting delayed, and then finally, I think it might have been like 11:30 p.m. All of a sudden, over the intercom comes the announcement: "Oh, your flight has been canceled." So we go up to the counter and talk to, I think this was United, right? United Airlines. Yeah, so we go out, talk to the United Airlines girl there, and we asked if we could get our flight rescheduled then, but the next flight wasn't going to be until Tuesday. Here's one of the things I found out, though. So there are flights that are leaving, but not flights that are leaving with whatever price you paid for the ticket. So you can always find another flight, but it might cost you double. And if you want to just stick to whatever the price of the ticket that you bought was, you have to, you're at the mercy of the airlines, basically. So in this case, we were stuck there for 2 days. Our flight didn't leave for 2 days, so I had to call my work, clear it too and let them know that our flight had gotten canceled and we couldn't fly out of there until 2 days after. One of the things we learned too is that there is this distressed passenger rate that the airline may or may not give you information on at the counter unless you ask for it. For us, we asked, is there a voucher or something that you could give us to accommodate for the airline canceling these flights and not rescheduling us until 2 days after? And so that's how we found out that there's a voucher for a distressed passenger rate, which means that you pretty much get a hotel room for half the price. So we ended up doing that. So we stayed, I think it was 2 days at the Holiday Inn Hotel in Manchester for $80, I want to say, when normally it would have been almost 200. So that helped a little bit. If you're not told this information, if your flight gets canceled, just go up to the counter and ask for vouchers for a distressed passenger rate. And this distressed passenger rate is good whenever a flight gets canceled for whatever reason. What about you, Claire? Do you have any other experience with that trip that I'm forgetting?
I just pack your patience. They always say that on TV, like during busy holiday travel times, like pack your patience. It's like, well, that's definitely true, and be flexible. And just try not to get angry at the situation or mad because you can't control the weather. The airlines can't control it, and they just do the best they can. And it's a bummer sometimes when they cancel your flight, but you just have to be flexible and roll with it.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the times you can save a lot of money too by renting a car, or better yet, make sure that there are buses that are going out of that airport that you're going to, and maybe getting you a little closer to your destination, because normally that's a little better. Like for us, we just last year actually, for the holidays, we ended up taking a bus from Boston to Manchester because it was just cheaper to fly into Boston than it was from into Manchester in New Hampshire. And so it got us closer to our destination, where we were able to be picked up by family members and go to our destination and have fun and then come back. And the thing with Boston is that you kind of have to battle traffic going out of the airport, and fees as well you have to pay. And it's a little stressful driving.
It's a big city.
Yeah, exactly.
Like even more stressful than LAX getting into?
I want to say
just maybe
yes.
Just because we don't know the area.
Yeah. And things are a little bit more compact too. I think for a while you're stuck inside this bridge or tunnel bridge that doesn't make things a lot of fun. But with LAX, if you can get into that one lane that'll take you out of that, then that's awesome. You don't have to get all crazy and try and cut other people off. As soon as you get into that one lane, that's it. Over here in Boston, I find that if you're gonna drive out of the airport, you also have to have cash on you, because there are fees that you're gonna have to pay, toll fees. And I think there's one as soon as you get out of the airport, or there's one when you're getting out of the airport, and then another one if you're gonna go into New Hampshire. You have to pay a toll fee. It's not that much. I think it's like $1 or something, but it's always good to have cash, whether you're going to a different country or just a different state. But it's a lot of fun. The U.S. has a lot of awesome places to check out. So we're going to be doing a lot more traveling, and I do like the different stops that we make, because it just kind of cuts this monotonous trip. Although sometimes it's nice to take a direct flight, but sometimes it's a lot of fun just to go and stop at one place, and then it'll give you a chance to go to an actual restroom and do other things, walk around a little bit. So that's a lot of that's kind of, it can be fun, I would say.
Mm-hmm. So we've been to New Hampshire in the fall and in the dead of winter. So now we're going to go to New Hampshire this August during the summer. So that'll be exciting for you to experience.
Yeah, I was told to pack a mosquito repellent. So I'm definitely going to get me a can of mosquito spray. The seasons too, you got to take account what weather you're going to be encountering, because that's going to tell you how much you have to pack. And I think recently, actually, I think the first couple times that we flew out to New Hampshire, we packed a lot more. We overpacked, I guess.
Right, because winter you kind of need a little bit more clothing. At least I do, because I'm freezing when I'm out there.
Yeah, I found out that over there, if I get like a really good jacket, I'm good. I'm good for the rest of the time that I'm there. In fact, it was over there that we found clothes or types of clothes that we just normally don't find over here on the West Coast. Because on the West Coast, you get, if you're living in California, you get that nice weather almost all year round. So over there, I ended up getting a Carhartt jacket, and that's like a very, very thick jacket. So even with the wind, you still don't feel anything. And my body naturally runs hot. So over in the wintertime, I got a chance to just now recently started packing a little bit more light. Yeah, get familiar with what you actually need so that you don't overpack, because now actually the airlines raise the baggage fees. I think it was $25 and now it's $30. And I think that's across the board too. I think all airlines are doing it.
So anything else about New Hampshire that traveling to the East Coast? Or we went to New York.
Oh, yeah, New York, man. That was crazy. It was fun, yet crazy driving there. So a lot of times I took an Uber because it was just nuts. But we did do the honking thing too, especially on the way out. On the way in, on the way out, just for the sake of it. Because it was a lot of fun. But it's I mean, I think LA is busy, but being in New York, I think it was busier.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like 24 hours busy.
Yep, exactly. But yeah, that was a fun experience either way. I just don't know if I want to go back anytime soon unless I have business there. But to vacation, I don't know. I might want to try different area of New York State, like maybe the Catskills.
I knew you were going to say that.
What?
Because of the Amazon show, Marvelous Miss Maisel. Yeah, it's a cool show. One thing that's hard about New York is there's so many places to eat. And it's like, how do you know that this hole-in-the-wall place is good to eat compared to this other hole-in-the-wall place? Or maybe a more well-known place that's been in like Food Network or something, or a food magazine. And just like, how do you decide and how do you find all the time to try all these places to eat? Because I just love to try lots of different food when I go to travel.
Yeah, I think we ended up for that trip reaching out to friends on Facebook who had been, out there and had us suggest or had them suggest a few places, a few spots, which we ended up doing too. But depending on how far you want to travel, you may stick to just within walking distance of your hotel room, or you may take an Uber or Lyft. I like Lyft a lot more, and so we used Lyft a lot over there. And we ended up going to certain places that Claire's mom, for example, who joined us on the trip, wanted to go, and so we ended up going there. It was like a public market type place, and that was a lot of fun. It was definitely you had to drive there, so. Or take some sort of public transportation. It was not within walking distance from our hotel room. But at the same time, once you got there, it was by the waterfront. I think, I remember there was the ocean nearby. So we ended up doing that. And we booked trips beforehand, too, before we got there.
And also, Claude, my stepdad, was with us. And we all really wanted to see the Statue of Liberty, so we definitely took a rideshare car from a hotel to the Statue of Liberty. And then you have to take a boat cruise out to the Statue of Liberty Island area. And so that was a really cool experience because you got a boat ride out of it, which I love being on the ocean.
Yeah, exactly. But just booking trips beforehand or activities beforehand helps to speed things up. Luckily, this is the convenience of technology. Now you can just go online and get tickets to whatever you want. Really, one of the things we didn't do was go to the theater there, Broadway, see a Broadway show. But might want to do that next time. Yeah. So there's another round of gas tax increase July 1st. And so that's going to require, a lot more money that you pay for per gallon at the gas pumps.
And that brings me to another great trip that we took is the train to San Luis Obispo. Mm-hmm. We did that trip early on when we were dating, and it was such a great idea because you didn't have to drive, so you could just focus on each other, not worry about driving. And so we took the train from Goleta to San Luis Obispo, which was a maybe 2-hour train ride or so.
Yeah, maybe about 3.
Okay, but nonetheless, it was beautiful. There's Wi-Fi on the trains now, and it's really great and relaxing, and no one has to worry about driving. You don't have to worry about gas. But then once you get to the train station, you do have to probably walk to your hotel or do a rideshare car or taxi to where your hotel is. But that was just such a great experience, and I wish we could take the train more often.
Yeah, the train is a really good option, and if you're gonna use your car, then just be aware that sometimes it's kind of hard to find that good cheap gas station. So I often find the cheaper ones away from the freeway. So unless you're desperate, you might want to just fill up at a gas station that's a few miles away from the freeway on ramp and off ramp. What other predicaments have we gotten into?
So we were talking about planes, trains, and where's the most fun car trip we've done?
Well, we did go up to the Bay Area that one time. That's probably the furthest that we've gone to on a ride, on a car.
That was a long car ride.
Yeah. We had to stop along the way, check out some of the sights. One of the things I wanted to do next time was the Winchester Mansion.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of fun. And mind you, our starting point is Santa Barbara, California. So like almost the Central Coast area, Southern California.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a nice drive. You can do it. Well, I really like that trip we took to San Simeon. Because that's really along the ocean side there. I mean, it's gorgeous, and they have the Hearst Castle there and everything. It's a really nice spot to check out, but I don't know if a train necessarily goes through the area. And
you can maybe just take the train to Slow and then rent a car, or
I think
a
so.
bus.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't even know if buses go there because it's just really off the beaten path. But it's really cool if you can get there. So I would say the car ride for that trip is good. And if you have a pet, you just got to call ahead of time if you're not sure if that hotel you want to stay at accepts pets. Because, they're always a little handful. But what else? Oh, do you remember the time we missed our flight over in O'Hare? There was, we actually ended up getting there, but because I think we were delayed maybe once, or the plane just took forever to get off the runway at the starting airport.
And that was our first trip to New Hampshire?
No, I think it might have been the second or third, because our window to get to when we got off one plane and got on the other one, I think our window for doing that was very small. We're talking about like maybe 12 to 15 minutes. That was at O'Hare. So it's not that, I mean, I think this was at a completely different gate altogether. I mean, you kind of had to run to get to one spot to the next. But we thought that we were confident that we were going to get there on time. So we ended up getting to O'Hare, and I think there was only 10 minutes. With 10 minutes difference to get to our next plane, but it was the gate was just pretty far away. And we thought instead of rushing there, work and running and acting like crazy people, we get on this little shuttle service that took you from our gate to the gate that we were going to. The problem with that was that I think there was only one shuttle, so they had to when we got off, they had just left, so they went to drop off the first crowd of people, and then they had to come back. So we ended up coming back, and they picked us up and took us over to the gate, and that was we ended up getting to our gate. I think it was 3 minutes after, or a few minutes after they had gone through the last call. So we got there, gates were closed, and that was a bummer. So we approached the counter there, and the girl there, she was nice enough to let us know that there was another flight that was leaving, but that was back at the gate where we originally started from, but we had about 15 minutes to get over there. So we thought, oh no, we were just there. Now we have to run over there because we don't want to take the shuttle anymore. That took forever. So we just ran. Now at this point, we're just acting like crazy people. So we get over there on time, and we get on the plane and we go. And I think the flight attendants were, at least one of them saw that we were just settling down from the panic that we had just gone through of missing our flight and then having to rush over to another gate to get on another flight. That now at this point, I think that our luggage was on the other plane that we had missed, and so now we're traveling separate from our luggage. So I was a little worried about that, but Claire says, nah, the luggage will get there when you get there. It's fine. But didn't you have an experience once when your luggage didn't arrive on time?
Yeah, that was coming from West Coast to East Coast, and it didn't get there in time, so they had to deliver it to the house in New Hampshire.
But how long did that take?
I don't remember exactly. Don't recall.
It was the next day?
No, probably not the next day.
The next day after that?
Maybe 2 or 3 days, at the most a week.
Oh, man. All right, so this brings me to the next point that I learned from that story that Claire told me about missing her luggage. So I ordered this little backpack from Amazon. It's like a little camping thing. It folds onto itself, but then when you expand it, it has all these pockets. It's awesome, and you can carry it on the plane because it comes as your backpack, or a personal bag they call it, right? So when you need to, you can just fill that stuff up with non-liquids, of course. So if you have extra clothes or whatnot, but I use that if I need to pack an extra set of clothes or two, in case the baggage somehow gets lost or is not delivered to the destination until a few days after. At least I have this small backpack that I've already stuffed with a couple of changes of clothes and some of my essentials, like toiletries and whatnot. So now I have that with me, and no matter what happens to my luggage, I can bear with it. So that's what I've been doing too. All right. Any other experiences?
I'm trying to think. Maybe just traveling with pets. Just trying to think of all the stuff pets will need while you're on vacation with them. Mm-hmm. And just finding places that accept dogs and how do you navigate all that? Because we have a 4-year-old Cocker Spaniel that we love so much, and just
it's crazy.
Yeah, I just want to bring him along with us in our crazy adventures. Dog. So I think that's one crazy element that can really make your trip interesting.
Perfect. All right. Well, I hope that this podcast episode was of help to anybody listening that might be first-time travelers or that may find themselves in predicaments like ours. I'm sure we're probably forgetting like one or two experiences. I mean,
like the TSA pre-check.
Oh, yeah, the TSA pre-check real quick. So the TSA pre-check allows you to gets you through the gates faster because you don't have to normally like take off your shoes or or open up your laptop, that kind of stuff. So there's certain little things that speed up the process. So TSA PreCheck, we signed up for it. I think it's 8 years or 5 years. I think it's 5 years.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it's between 5 and 8 years, I'm gonna say, and then after that I think you have to renew, but it's about $80 or so, and you have to just go to an office. For us, the closest one was in Oxnard, so we go there. I'm sure there's a few in LA, of course, too, but there's always generally an office where you can get your TSA PreCheck done near you, and that way you have TSA PreChecks. So when you buy plane tickets, you always have to provide that number they give you, so that you can get the TSA PreCheck printed on your tickets, and then you can go on that line. It definitely works in a lot of places here in the U.S., but not if you're really traveling abroad. Like for us, Mexico didn't offer TSA PreCheck, because TSAs aren't over there. They got their own
security system.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not going to speed up process over there in other countries unless they participate in TSA PreCheck. But if you're traveling within the United States, I think it's a really good thing to have, and $80 is not that expensive. And it's, you kind of, it helps you get through the gate faster in more of a non-embarrassing way. Because, I don't know. I mean, if you didn't have TSA PreCheck, you definitely have to take your shoes off and your belt. And one time my pants were so baggy that the moment I took off my belt, it just kind of started falling. So, yeah, that was not fun. So at TSA PreCheck, just avoid some of those embarrassing moments. But I would definitely recommend it. Are you happy with your TSA PreCheck?
Yeah, it's been great when there's lots of long lines. I think if we travel through LAX more, it'll be super helpful. But lately we've been going through Santa Barbara and smaller airports, so it doesn't matter as much. But
strangely enough, sometimes going through the smaller airports gets you cheaper tickets than if you're traveling from international airports. It's kind of strange, but it depends on the destination you're going to. So for us, sometimes we might take the Santa Barbara because it's a little cheaper, and at the same time, it's Santa Barbara. It's in a smaller town, and there's not a ton of traffic. It's a lot easier for us to leave the car over there. Parking fees might also be cheaper over there. But then there are times when we want to fly to places where flying out of LAX, for example, is a lot cheaper. But I don't think I'm missing anything else, right? I think we pretty much said it all.
Yeah. Oscar and Claire's summer travel tips 2019.
Yep. Exactly. Well, if you like this podcast and enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe. We're everywhere where you can get your podcast. Just search for The Hangry Mexican. And if you have any comments or questions, email them to hangrymexicanpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to feature some of those comments in future episodes. Again, hope you enjoyed this little chat. If there are any topics that you want us to talk about, let me know. The Hangry Mexican Podcast @gmail.com.
Thanks for listening, guys. It's been great chatting with Oscar about these fun tips. I always learn something new from Oscar when we get to ask him questions and just hear about his experiences, so it's lots of fun. And just like you can find Hangry Mexican on social media, find me on social media. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is @ClaireTVNews. Thanks.
All right. Well, until next time, good night. Good luck.